I've looked through hundreds of property due diligence reports over the years, and honestly, there's one thing I see all the time. Most buyers genuinely think they've done their homework once they get a building and pest inspection. And I get why. That's what everyone tells you to do. But here's the thing most people don't realize. That inspection only covers about 30 to 40% of what can actually go wrong with a property. The rest of the risk is sitting somewhere else. And this isn't about being paranoid or overthinking things. It's just about knowing where the real risks actually live. Most buyers focus on what they can see. Professionals focus on what they can't. And that one shift in thinking is usually the difference between a smooth purchase and years of frustration fixing stuff that could have been avoided. I've seen people buy places with spotless building reports, everything looking fine on paper, only to find out later they can't renovate, they can't develop, insurance becomes a nightmare, or their whole plan just stops working. When you pull it apart, it's nearly always a due diligence issue. So today, I want to walk you through how this is actually done properly. Not theory, not generic checklists, but the way I approach it with my own clients to keep them out of trouble. If we haven't met before, I'm Karl. I help people build long-term strategic property investment portfolios across residential and commercial real estate in Australia. Now, just quickly before we go any further, I've put together a free copy of the slides I'm covering in this video. You can download them using the link in the description below. Now, when we talk about due diligence, here's the simple version. Most people miss the same handful of things. When you strip it back, there are 5 key areas of due diligence most buyers either rush or completely miss. Before we get into those, I want to say this so it doesn't feel overwhelming. You don't need to become an expert in all of this. You just need to know what to check, when to slow down, and when to bring in the right person. Due diligence isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about asking the right questions early. Let me give you a really common scenario. Someone finds what looks like a great deal. The place has been renovated, the rent looks good, the price feels right. They get the building inspection, it comes back clean, so they move ahead. A few months later, they want to take the next step, maybe add a granny flat or extend. That's when they find out there's a drainage easement running right through the part of the block they plan to build on. The council says no. The whole strategy falls apart. Now, nothing changed. The easement was always there, it just never got checked. So let's talk about building inspections. They're important and you absolutely should get one, but they're not the finish line. Inspectors can only report on what they can see and access on the day. Every report has a section on limitations, and most people skim straight past it. If they can't access the subfloor, if furniture is blocking walls, if roof spaces are tight, those are blind spots. And that's where big problems usually hide. This is usually where someone says, but the inspector didn't flag anything major. And that might be true, based on what they could see. But they're not allowed to cut into walls, they're not engineers, and they're not there to protect your long-term strategy. They're there to report on visible conditions. That's why 2 people can read the same report and walk away with completely different outcomes. One simple thing I always tell people to ask when booking in an inspection is whether thermal imaging is included. Thermal imaging can pick up moisture issues, termite activity, even electrical problems you'd never spot otherwise. If it's not included, pay the extra or find someone who does. I've seen people hesitate over an extra $100, then spend $20,000 later fixing something that would have shown up straight away. That's not an upsell. That's cheap information versus expensive surprises. Now, asbestos. If the property was built before the late 80s, just assume it's there, especially if you're planning renovations. Removal costs can easily run into the tens of thousands, and if that's not factored in upfront, it can blow your numbers out fast. If you can, be there for the inspection and ask questions. Is that crack cosmetic or structural? What does recommend further investigation actually mean? Because when an inspector suggests bringing in an engineer or specialist, that's usually their way of saying that this could be serious. Think of inspections as the starting point, not the final answer. Now, if you're buying a unit or a townhouse, there's another layer that catches people out all the time, and that's strata. I've seen buyers get hit with special levies weeks after settlement, $20,000, even $50,000. None of it was a surprise. It was all in the records, they just never read them. This is where emotions get involved. People fall in love with the apartment, the view, the lifestyle, and assume the strata side will sort itself out. But the strata isn't background noise. It's a shared financial partnership, and you inherit whatever condition it's in at the moment you buy. So don't rely on an agent's summary. Ask for the full strata records. Look at the meeting minutes, the financials, engineering reports, and the bylaws. Check the sinking fund balance. If it's low, that's usually a warning sign. Special levies don't come out of nowhere. Recurring maintenance, owners behind on payments, things being deferred year after year. Those are all red flags. If more than 10% of owners are in arrears, that tells you there's probably financial stress in the building. Next is the land itself, and this is where most buyers have a massive blind spot. There are so many digital tools available now that makes this stuff really clear, but most people just don't use them. Flood mapping is a big one. Don't judge flood risk based on how a place looks on a sunny day. Check the data. Has it flooded before? Is there a flood overlay? What flood levels apply? Flood-prone properties can mean higher insurance, lending issues, and lower resale appeal. What surprises most people is that this information is already public. It's not hidden, it's just not shown to you at the open home. Because it's not obvious on the day, people assume it doesn't matter. That assumption is where a lot of expensive mistakes start. If the property backs onto bushland, check bushfire overlays. Is there any history of industrial use nearby? Check contamination registers before you go any further. It's important to look beyond the property itself. Check what's zoned around it. Check development applications. That vacant block next door might be zoned for high density development, and that can completely change the feel and value of a place. Due diligence isn't just about what the property is today, it's about what it could become. Now let's talk about the legal side, the title. The title tells you what you legally own, what restrictions come with it. Easements can stop you building where you planned. Covenants can permanently limit subdivision or developments. Caveats can delay or even block a transaction. This is why I always encourage buyers to actually look at the title themselves, not just rely on a summary. You don't need to understand every legal term. You just need to know what affects how you can use the property, because that directly affects the value. You also want to check whether any renovations were council approved. Unapproved work can cause insurance problems or even lead to demolition orders. Walk the boundaries, check the fence line, look for anything that doesn't quite line up. The title stuff feels boring, but it matters more than most people realize. And finally, planning and zoning. This is what protects you from future surprises. Check the zoning carefully. Low density, medium density, high density. They all allow very different outcomes. Look at overlays like heritage, flood, or bushfire controls, and check what's already been approved nearby. I've seen people buy for the views and privacy, only to lose them within a year, even though the warning signs were there the whole time. And this isn't just about avoiding bad surprises. Sometimes planning information shows opportunity. Infrastructure upgrades, zoning changes, future developments, these can all work in your favor if you know about them early. Due diligence isn't just about being defensive, it's strategic. Before we wrap up, there's one last mistake I see all the time. People rely entirely on the seller's disclosure. Disclosure is a starting point, not verification. Sellers might not know about the issues. They might not think something matters, or some things just don't legally have to be disclosed. Always do your own checks. Get your own inspections, confirm zoning, verify approvals. As I say, trust but verify everything. When you zoom out, proper due diligence isn't about the fear. It's about clarity. It's about knowing exactly what you're buying, what you can do with it, and what might change over time. Once you have that clarity, decisions get a lot calmer and a lot more confident. If you'd like support navigating due diligence and making sure it's handled as part of a clear end-to-end buying strategy, this is exactly where I can help. You can book a free consultation with me via the link in the description below. We'll use that time to talk through your situation to see how I may be able to help you. Now, once you've got the due diligence side sorted, the next step is knowing how to find the right locations in the first place. That's what I cover in my next video on how to identify high-growth suburbs before the wider market catches on. You'll see a link on screen now to watch that next. Thanks for watching. I'm Karl, and I'll see you in the next one.